What's happening, everyone? It's GBall, and I have a knife here to unbox for you, coming in from the Artisan Cutlery CJRB family. It is a new release for them, and we're going to unbox it with another new release coming in from Artisan Cutlery. That is the Dark Wing there, the Glow Wing as they call it. These are out on Kickstarter right now. I will have links to this knife and this knife down in the description. If you want to jump in on the Kickstarter, it has already been fully funded. It was actually fully funded within the first hour of it going live, which is pretty impressive. Now, if this is your first time stopping by, welcome to GBall Vision. Drop a comment below. Let me know what your EDC looks like today. You always get a nice package with CJRB and Artisan. The knife we're going to be taking a look at is one of my favorites from CJRB. When we're talking $50 to $100 pocket knives, I think the bolt should be in that equation. Now, they have a bolt in S90V and G10 that is like 90 bucks. That's the one I'm referring to if we're going to jump up in price. But this one here is actually going to be down below $50 or just under 50. The bolt was, I believe, the first knife they released with the recoil V2 lock. If not, it was one of the first knives they released with the V2 recoil lock. And I gotta say, I love the innovation into the crossbar lock. They included a fin on top of that crossbar, so you can use both to disengage the knife and open the knife. I think it is really cool. Once you get it figured out, it becomes very fun, very fidgety. And the other great thing is crossbar locks are notoriously dependable locking systems, and they're actually fairly strong, whether you believe that or not. Under real world use, I find crossbar locks to be one of the most dependable locking mechanisms when it comes to a folding knife. We are going to be looking at their RPM 9 steel on this one, dual thumb studs for the deployment, and then we have a nice row of jimping there just above, which is a nice landing spot on this knife. And what's cool is you can also kind of lock in behind that fin there. If you're really getting into something, having that fin there is kind of nice to use as a ramp, depending on where you want to hold the knife. And then the seller on this particular bolt is going to be the scales. It almost looks like it's a JG10, but it is actually their glow-in-the-dark G10, which they have done with a couple of other models. And from everything I have seen, they have sold them out a couple of different times. Now, the bolt is in stock when I am recording this video. I'm going to try to get it up as soon as possible. That way, if you're collecting those glow-in-the-dark knives or you just like this knife in general, it is available to you. If it's not, that is something I am sorry about. It is going to be sporting a deep carry clip that's left-hand friendly. Nice little spot for a lanyard there. What really sells this knife to me, though, on top of the cool locking mechanism and the very simple design, is they did the blade absolute justice on the bolt. It has a nice thin blade stock, and it comes down nice and thin as well. We're going to check all of that here in a few moments, but it is a great cutter. Easy to carry, and it's very fun. Really hard to beat, in my opinion. We'll get the tape measure out here and get a couple of measurements. Full length is going to come in there right at 7.5. We have 2, and we're going to give it 2 3/4 of cutting edge, 3 5/16 of total blade. Grab a couple of comparison knives with the Spyderco Para 3 up top and the PM2 on the bottom. And you can see it's much more in line with something like the Para 3, but it's going to be just a little bit longer than the Para 3 is. What's really cool is we'll check them out here near the end of the video. The glow-in-the-dark scales is really cool. And 2 more for you. We got the Artisan Dark Wing, the Glow Wing variant, which is also got a glow-in-the-dark material. It's a carbon fiber, looks really cool. And then we have the Monster Reaver on the bottom. I have had a hell of a time trying to put that Artisan Cutlery Dark Wing down. It is superb. If you haven't seen my full video on this knife, highly recommend going and checking it out. They're putting out a ton of different versions. It's fun, fidgety. The design is epic, in my opinion. It's really comfortable. Not the most ideal blade shape per se if you're looking for the ultimate utility knife. But like I tell people, not every knife has to be dedicated to a tactical scenario, a utility scenario, or insert whatever topic you want to insert. Sometimes knives are just fun. You know, it can be about just fun. And it's not just about fun with the Darkwing, but that is included with the design. I think it looks pretty badass, but you know, that's just my opinion. We're going to get the 50 Ways GBall Vision Hank out here. Take a look at their standard clip. It works really well for what it is. It's one of the better budget-oriented clip. It's one of the better budget-oriented clips. It's going to look clean in the pocket, carry nice and deep, good retention on the way out. It is surface mounted, but the screws are recessed. Never had any issues with their standard clip. They've been using this one now for quite a while. Like I said, it is going to be left-hand friendly, and that makes the knife completely ambidextrous. Now we'll go ahead and get the arch nemesis off the shelf here and dust him off. We're going to get a weight check here on the new bolt, but I like to play a little game on the channel with the new knives that come in where we guess the weight, and I always invite you to play along. You put your guess down in the comments. Let me know what you think this is going to come in at, ounces or grams, whichever you prefer. Even if you already have a comment down there, go ahead and put your guess. And if you're enjoying this video, you like knives and gear, you're in the right place. Make sure you're subscribed here to the channel. I'm going to give this a go. It does have recessed steel liners with some milling in there for weight relief. It's got a regular weight to it, I would say. Something, you know, that we often feel. And I'm going to say that it is coming in there right around 3 ounces, probably. Let's say 3 ounces on the nose, just for the sake of it. Ooh, it got me good. 2.6 ounces and 76 grams. Yeah, it's actually very lightweight for its size. 2.6 ounces for this fellow with recessed steel liners. So that keeps it looking pretty clean. Not something you often see down around this price point. You know, it's starting to be more common, but not something that was commonly seen up until very recently is companies starting to recess those liners. I know a lot of people really like that type of design feature. I don't mind flush fit scales, recess scales. They all are good to me as long as they're done properly. I'm a big fan of both sides of it. Here's where we get into the good stuff on this knife. We're going to get our calipers out here. They are zeroed off. We have 0.41 on the handle thickness, 10.5 millimeters, but the blade stock thickness on this bad boy is going to come in at 2.7 millimeters, 107 thousandths on the blade stock. So it's not ultra thin like 80, 90 thousandths, but it is down there around 100 thousandths, which is starting to get pretty damn thin. It's going to come in right there at 20 thousandths, or this one's coming in at 19.5, right behind the edge. Let's see how this bad boy cuts out of the box. We have our standard catalog paper here, going to be a great poke and slice knife, and it'll be a good slicer as well. I've had a couple of these in to check out and carried a few of them pretty extensively, especially the S90V version. And these things, if you are looking for a slicey knife or you like a slicey knife, this is going to be a good choice to take a look at. Now, here with the RPM 9 steel, it is not a super steel, and that's why it's not priced as such. So you're not going to get super steel levels of performance, you know, out of the edge retention on a knife down around 50 bucks. You're just not going to get that. So to the people who say, you know, I got to sharpen it every time I cut 50 miles of cardboard, well, yeah, it's not going to hold up like S90V does, but for a person who is getting it out to use it throughout the day on various tasks, it's going to hold up very well for you. If you're looking to, if you're looking for the next knife to take out into your garage and test and, cut hundreds of feet of cardboard with it, well, RPM 9 might not be the best option for that. But just for an EDC blade, running it through the various things you're going to run into on a given day, all that, caveated with, depending on what you do for your job or what you do in your off time, there's always going to be some caveats and yeah buts a la Paul Harrell, but it's going to be a good steel for a routine folding knife. And then you get the great geometry on that blade and a really cool lock. We're going to get the off-grid driver out and the concept driver. That's going to be our new T6, and the off-grid's going to be the T8. We'll give all the hardware a check here, and we're looking at T8s on the pivot and body, and it looks like T6 on the pocket clip. Both these drivers are awesome. One is aluminum, one is titanium, but they both have a really cool feature that you can store bits in this tube here, and then you can store the bits on the off-grid right on the handle. Many of you know I'm a big fan of that particular driver, but if you want to spice it up a little bit with the material, you want to get an anode job, the concept driver is really cool, and they made it nice and girthy so you can get a good grip on it. Plus this texturing really helps secure the driver in your hand. Big fan of both of those. Anyway, I'd like to see T8s all the way around. That would be better for everyone. Keep it simple for CJRB and Artisan, and it would keep it simple for the end user. A little bit of lock stick there, which is hopefully and most likely going to be the tolerances, which I think it is. It feels really, really good. And like I said, crossbar locks are notoriously brute locks. Not the strongest lock in the world, but it's going to be pretty good for you. This one has a little tiny bit of stick. It's when I really throw the blade out there, which is telling me that it's a tolerance thing. You hear that little click, or see it at least? We're going to see what the old spine whacker has to say about that. Grab the old spine whacker off of the toolbox there, and we're going to give this a couple of taps to make sure everything is functioning properly. Give it a couple of tugs. Like I said, it feels very good. Nice and strong, nice and sturdy. We'll kick that blade out. We'll start out towards the tip there. Give it a light tap just to get us going. Make sure it is, hopefully proper in there. And a light little tap just to, some knives, if you've been around, you've seen them fail just based on a little tap like that. Go to the middle, we'll close it and check it. And a good shot there in the middle. Close it and check it again. And another good shot. And one more. Yeah, very good. We'll do one more, screw it. We'll do one more for good measure. It's good. It sounds good. Feels good. Yeah, very good. I am a big fan of the Recoil V2 lock. I think I do. I like it more than just a regular crossbar lock. And CJRB, Artisan have always done a great job with their crossbar locks and their button plunge locks for that matter. And they've done a stunningly good job with their button compression locks. They've only done a couple of them at this point, but they absolutely knock it out of the park with keeping everything nice and strong. There was a time a couple years ago where if you were looking for a budget-oriented plunge lock, CJRB was about the only place I would recommend you going and checking out their button plunge locks if you were worried about the plunge lock staying locked up. So Vivi, they had their own issues. Kaiser, Vostede, like plenty of companies had their issues. And I rarely ever had that with Artisan CJRB. I think one knife out of that entire time, and we ended up fixing it. It was coating overspray onto the tang and plunge lock and fixed it. But it was due to coating and just overspray, which is, you can often attribute lock failure to either there's coating on the lock face or the tang, or there's oil, debris in there, something's causing an issue. And if it's, you find out it's not one of them things, you figure it out, diagnose it, it could be an issue with the tolerances of the knife and should have been caught before it was left to you or shipped to you. And that should have been taken care of, before it ever left the factory. But sometimes things do get through. One thing I will say, though, is that companies have been doing a way better job at sending out knives that have a good lockup. Do some get through that fail? Yeah, they do. They do. And there's sometimes things that happen. But the less they happen, the better. And when they do happen now, the company is made aware of it in a glaring way. And they are hell-bent on not letting that happen again. Right. So it's a great thing holding companies responsible for the products they're going to put out. If I'm myself making a product, I want it to be what it's supposed to be and the best that I can get it. And a locking folding knife should be able to stay locked up under, a couple of taps. That's just the way that it goes. If you are sticking up for, whether you agree with a spine whack test or you want me to buy a machine that drops weights on it or whatever, or you don't agree with that either, you should at least agree to the fact that a locking folding knife should be able to stay locked up under a little bit of pressure adversity to that lock. We have proven it hundreds of times that it can be done. We prove it on a weekly and daily basis that it can be done and everything else be done properly as well. So there's no excuse for it, especially when companies who are putting out $30 knives are nailing heat treats. They're nailing their locking mechanisms. I mean, at this point in 2026, there is no excuse for lock failures. That's just, my thoughts on the whole equation. You guys know, though, I test every knife every day, multiple times a day. Every knife gets checked. No matter the price, no matter the lock, it's going to meet the spine whacker. And that's just how it's going to be. And then you guys see the end result, whether it passes or fails. And I would say the overwhelming majority have been passing here with great success. Has there been a few that have failed? Yeah, there has been a couple, but less and less the longer we go on. And I think, we can attribute that to making sure we check them in the unboxing. I'm talking about myself and, putting the results of that out there. Now we're going to see what the glow in the dark is all about with this feller. Get our trusty O-light and UV here. And we're going to give this a couple of shots with the UV light. That's how you can charge them up very, very quickly. Here, I'll give you a look at this one as well. Look at that. Isn't that sweet? But you can tell the G10 just takes in the light so much better than the carbon fiber. The carbon fiber is cool, especially if you're around a black light with it. It really looks cool. But as far as absorbing and holding the glow, the G10, I think it's going to be a better material. I think it's denser and it holds that charge quite a bit longer. But we're going to cut the lights here and we're going to take a look at this bad boy and see. Well, we won't kill all the lights, but should we kill them all? No, we don't need to kill them all, do we? All right, I'll kill the studio light. Now, it's not completely dark in here, but it's pretty close to being completely dark. Nonetheless, this is a cool-ass party trick. You know what I mean? You're most likely going to be carrying a flashlight with a UV light in it, and you can top off your knife anytime. But you can see how we got mainly just the show side there, and then you can hit the backside. And you can hit the backside. What's cool is you'll be able to what's cool is there's going to be more and more innovation into the glow in the dark stuff that I think it's bound to start getting really crazy here in 2026 with the handle options out there. Let me know what you think of the new glow in the dark bolt, and let me know your thoughts on the Darkwing with the button compression lock. I always look forward to hearing from you. Do me a solid and hit that thumbs up button. It helps push the video out there to more people, and I truly appreciate it. And if you want to be sure you're going to see more dope daily knife and EDC content just like this, make sure you're subscribed here to the channel and you ring that bell. I'll pop up a couple of new videos you haven't seen yet. Go check one of them out for me. Have yourself an awesome day. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.